everybody. Lieutenant Joe Pangaro here for Hope is Not a Tactic on the DisruptEdTV.com network. I have a guest today that I want to introduce everybody to, Superintendent John Spaltoff from the Spring Lake Heights School District here in New Jersey. John, how are you?
Great, doing well. Glad to be on the show, Joe.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. You know, John, right now, school security obviously is a major topic. I'm hoping that most people have gotten their head out of the sand and have gotten away from that whole "it'll never happen here" thing, and they're starting to move forward. Now, you've been a superintendent for a couple of years now. I know you went from principal to superintendent. What were your main concerns as you became a superintendent for security?
So it was interesting for me because I went from a much larger district to literally a one school district. So very hometown feel, great community aspect, and sort of walked in and my first day on the job, I had said to one of the secretaries, "Where do I get my ID made?" And she said, "Well, we don't have IDs. Everybody knows everyone." And that was sort of my first inclination that, all right, I think I really need to look at security here, because I was used to, from my larger district where we had a lot of people that did a lot of things for us, having IDs and door swipes and all types of things. And I quickly learned that while a wonderful community and a great town, that it was a lot of that, it could never happen here. We love where we're at. You know, this is a great place. You know, all the police know all of the teachers. That's why they don't need to have IDs. And we used to have this company that would make them, and then we don't use them anymore. And so some teachers have ones from years ago. So again, that was sort of, for me, the tip of the iceberg in terms of, I really need to dig deeper and see what we have and what we don't have. And unfortunately, what I found was that there was a lot of stuff to me that should have been taken care of and should have been done and wasn't done. And so what I did was I reached out to professionals and said, come in and tell me what we're doing wrong. You know, I mean, by default, you know, we're instructional leaders of school districts. That's what we're supposed to be doing, guiding instruction. And I certainly am not an expert in security, but I also know that I have to lay my head down each and every night and make sure that I've provided a safe learning environment for both the children and for the staff. So yeah, my biggest concerns were finding our holes, finding where we were weak, and finding what we needed to button up.
Now, I think it's great for people to hear this, because there's a lot of smaller school districts. I go, you know, through Pennsylvania and New York, and I've been to Georgia and doing some stuff out in Colorado, and a lot of people, like I'm saying, I'm starting to get the sense after the Parkland incident that people are starting to change their thoughts about this, and they're saying, okay, we need to do something. So you said you came from another district where they did a lot more things, and then you saw, wow, we really need to catch up here. So what was your first step? What's the first thing you did to find out where your gaps were?
So the first thing I did was I personally myself walked the building and sort of looked at things that needed to be done, started talking immediately to the other administrator that's in this building, to the secretaries, to the custodial staff, and sort of found out what needed to be done. And then I called on a professional to do a threat assessment and basically said, hey, I need somebody to come in and tell me from an outsider perspective what the issues are, and then also put it into a report for me so that I can go back to the board and say, hey, listen, I had somebody who's a specialist in this area. Look at where our weakness is and make some recommendations. And now when you have that information, you can't really go to your board of ed and say, hey, I have all this stuff on where we need to strengthen things up, and them not act upon it.
Right.
Because again, as I mentioned earlier, if the building isn't safe and secure, then nobody's learning. And nobody's getting out of the education system what they should be. So as a result, you know, again, when you take that and you say, okay, here's what our issues are, we would do the exact same thing if we got low test scores back in, say, math, right? We would analyze that data, we would look at it, and we would say, okay, we need to work on teaching exponents to the kids because we're not good in that area. And when we have that data from an educational standpoint, we do everything that we can with it. Mm-hmm. So you apply that then into the security realm, and you say, okay, I have this data, I have this information. What am I going to do about it?
Right.
Some things you can do right away, other things you can't, you know, because there's a cost involved in certain things. Right. But then you create a budget that makes sense to go forward and make those adjustments over time.
Now that's great. Now, by full disclosure, just so everybody knows, you're being very good about it, but who was the expert you called to help you?
It was Joe Pangaro. You and I worked together, obviously, in my previous district. And as soon as I left and came here and said, wow, this district isn't anywhere near where my previous district was, where I worked with you, and called, knowing that you had done sort of side work at that time, if that made sense, and said, what do you do? And had you come in, and I look at it, from some of the smaller districts, they're going to say, okay, well, we don't have the money to do an assessment. We can walk around, or I'll have my police department walk around. And that's great. The police are wonderful. Your local security folks are wonderful. However, you yourself, you were a professional in that area, and you knew what to look for, right? You knew to walk in and, okay, did so-and-so challenge me? Did this person not challenge me? Did I walk around on the playground and nobody questioned me as to why I was there? Fortunately, I think we did well in some of those areas, but there were certainly gaps in from a staff perspective as far as what we have to do. What I did find was that I gained a lot of clout with my staff, at least I felt, in terms of the security realm, because they saw that I took this serious, and that, you turn on the news and every other day there's something terrible happening, right? So that adage of it won't happen here, it can happen here, I think is a huge mistake to make upon any whether you be whether you're in education or in any other industry. If you're responsible for the overall security of a building, that has to be your number one priority.
Right. And I just wanted to get that out there, because I want people to think this is a commercial. It's not. Right. But I know you're a new superintendent. These were your concerns, and I was very glad to be able to help you in the district. But it's absolutely right. It's a starting point. If you don't know where your gaps are and you don't know where you're strong, how do you spend money? And I find lots of district people will call me and say, we have money to spend. We don't want to spend money improperly. So I tell them, get a threat assessment, and you'll figure out where you need to apply that money, whether it's short-term or long-term.
And for us, that not only did the threat assessment show us, from an internal security aspect as to what needed to be done, but when you walk around and you start pushing open all your exterior doors and you say, okay, well, half of my exterior doors have some type of issue, from a facility standpoint, it said, okay, well, we need to go in and we need to make sure that all of our doors close, that all of the closing mechanisms on them are working properly, right? That when they go open, that they don't get propped open, that they don't do those types of things. So, that in and of itself, for me, again, we're a one building district. We spent almost $10,000 just repairing doors that weren't closing properly, right? So how can I say to staff, hey, listen, we're safe here and we're doing all these things, but yeah, that door doesn't close because the closer's broke on it, So those very basic things, and even for us here, exterior lighting was a big issue. The first night I was here, I'd asked the custodians to turn the lights on outside, and 19 of 29 lights were inoperable. Right. From a facilities standpoint, if I'm here at night and I can't see the grounds, well, I mean, that's common sense, So
it's a liability, because anything could happen. People could just get hurt, not even someone coming to hurt the students and the staff.
And
somebody get hurt in the field or walking around your building.
Right. And so, over the past, I started in August of 18, right? August of 17. It does. It is. And sort of walked in right away to things that needed to be addressed. We addressed a lot of them, and then over time we've spread things out. We've updated all of our access swipes and doors, and every teacher has an ID now, right? And every staff
member. We've actually really tightened up that school,
we're printing. We're making them in house. We're doing them ourselves. We're not worried about it. Every staff member that's around has a real walkie-talkie. We were using these ones that I could have gotten out of my kid's toy box previously, and you have aides outside on the playground during recess with the kids, and they can't hear you because you got this goofy little, toy walkie-talkie. Right. That sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work. And so little things like that, they're not cheap. And that's when you look at it. A set of a dozen walkie-talkies costs you $5,000 to $6,000. Mm-hmm. But how do I say, okay, God forbid there's somebody out there that shouldn't be out there on the playground and they can't get in touch with me because we don't want to spend $5,000 or $6,000?
Well, I think your point at the beginning was true, John. If your building is in school today, if your building is not secure and your people aren't safe, you can't do the educational portion. Which is why DisruptED TV asked me to come on and do this show, because if people are not safe in their schools, they can't concentrate on teaching the kids. Everybody's always worried something's going to happen. And I think it's outstanding that was your first concern, to come in and tighten up your buildings and make it safe for everybody.
Well, Joe, and I'm sure you've heard me say this before, I look at everything that I do, whether it be from an instructional standpoint, a security standpoint, we have a big construction project going on, is what would I want my own kids, right? I have 3 kids, right? I've got a 14-year-old and twin 12-year-olds, right? So would I want their school to be secure? Would I want them to be able to feel safe? And what would I want for them? And that's what we bring to here, both myself and the assistant principal. It's really, what do we want for our own children? So, because they are.
That's a great point of view.
Right?
Because that's how I do the threat assessments. I look at the school and say, if my kid was going here, what would I want them to know? So Speaking of that, now let's talk just another couple of minutes here. You have an entire staff there, right? You have custodial staff, clerical staff, you have lunch personnel, aides, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Do you include them in the safety and security of the school? And how important is that?
Absolutely. They've been involved in the entire project. Custodial staff, to me, is probably your biggest asset, right? In terms of, they're the ones that are here first thing in the morning. They're the ones here at the end of the night. They're the ones that are going to see things that are out of place, that are different. So their sweeps of the building in the morning, walking around, turning the lights on for the teachers, at least means that they're opening the door, they're looking in. If something's out of place, they can let me know.
Yep.
We've also instituted, the remote access program, the app program that we're using, where we can call down drills and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So God forbid something happens, everybody has access to that, whether you're a lunch assistant, whether you're a custodian. So everybody's involved. And that has led me to change how we do drills, or how, I can't say we, how historically drills have been done. And I think historically we do a drill when the weather is nice and every kid is in their class and nobody's in the hallways. And it doesn't interfere with lunches, and it doesn't interfere with an assembly, and it does, or the PTA is in the building, so we can't do it now because they'd be inconvenienced. And that has really been a big culture shock to the staff, right? Because, we'll go to run a drill and we'll look on our security cameras, which we've beefed up a ton too. We have a whole bunch of new security cameras. But, we'll look on that and we'll say, somebody will say, well, it's not look, all the kids are in the hallway, and I go run it, right? Because, your emergency is not going to wait for all your kids to be in the classroom and for the weather to be perfect.
That is a great point, and I just want to comment on that. One of the things I do when I do a threat assessment is, as you know, I go to the building administrator and I ask for an impromptu lockdown drill. And I'd like to see the drill. I want to see how everybody functions, but really it's a leadership test, because I get a lot of answers from people. They panic. They say those.
I would say palpitations, right?
Palpitate. I can't do it now. I didn't let everybody know when it's going to happen. I said, if you're doing drills and you're telling everyone when it's coming, that knocks out some of the anxiety, but that's not really practicing.
Right.
So I appreciate the fact that when somebody's willing to go, okay, let's do it right now, see how it comes out. Do it at a time when kids are moving.
And we've put enough things in place we use that Share 911 program. We put enough things in place, like with using that and using our card system and using our new walkie-talkies, that it shouldn't matter where the kids are at that point in time. We've trained, we've done all of that. And so if we're not going to ever practice the way that we've trained, well, then what good is the training, right? So I find that a lot of times the students are very quick to be able to do what they have to do. We also have the additional locks on our doors that we've put on. And from the minute we put them in last year, we said to the staff, we're going to train the kids. I want the kids to be able to use it. So we do this Up Standard of the Week program. And so 2 weeks ago, we ran a lockdown drill with the police department. We locked down at a time that was not convenient. And as we were going through clearing the rooms, the police and I, we got to the girls' restroom over by the first and second grade. And there was a little girl in the girls' restroom, and she had locked herself down. She had put the safety mechanism in. And was she scared? Yes, she was scared. But had she done exactly what she needed to do? Absolutely. So she became our Upstander of the Week. Meanwhile, on the flip side, you have a staff member who says, I got flustered. I didn't know what to do. I don't want to be locked in the teacher bathroom. So I went out in the hallway and went down to and you say, okay, I get it. But I have a first grader who did exactly what we asked them to do. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's ongoing training. That's something you have to constantly.
It is. And it's that teacher instinct to get out and help. right?
Yes.
You know, and so, but for me, that was like, okay, well, this kid was in kindergarten when we put these in place last year, you know, and here she is, she's a first grader, and she knew, take the little thing out of the box, put it in the door, make sure that it's secured, and stay in a stall.
That's outstanding, John.
You know, and you know, it's even neater when you're standing there with one of the police officers who has kids in the building, who's helping you clear the building, and he sees that okay, you've actually, this is working, what you're doing, you know. So,
and I think that's the key right there. It's working. It puts you in a position to, and as we all know, nothing can prevent everything.
Right.
It puts you in the best position you can to keep everyone as safe as absolutely possible. So I am thrilled to see that you're doing those things, that your staff is all part of everything. You've had the threat assessment, you're using it.
Right.
For your benefit.
Right.
I think
again, that was a piece of data, Joe, that when you had it, you're obligated to do something with it, right? How could I ignore it? Right?
Right.
Hey, these are your weaknesses. These are areas that you guys need to firm up. You don't have a camera at your front door that can actually see people's face, right? You got one mounted up on the building side 30 feet away that shows the rear of somebody. Well, what good is that doing us?
Right. You need to see.
Let's do that immediately. Let's add that camera in right now. You know, the staff is looking at it on a tiny little screen in the office. So we put a big TV in the front office with just that front door on it now, you know.
That's excellent. Well,
there they are.
I told you we have the dog rescue we do here. Somebody must be walking by. So at this point, John, I'm going to say thank you very much for coming on here on Hope Is Not a Tactic. When I see somebody like you and the things you're doing, that gives me hope. That everyone out there in the audience, pay attention. There are things you can do that doesn't cost you a lot of money, but that you need to start looking at. So John, thank you very much. Be safe and look like you're part of the solution out there.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Good luck.
See you next time.